on the 4coder documentation system. Just to introduce you to it, I've done a little, in the last stream I did a little bit to get it sort of set up. At least I did the thing that, or rather I should say I wrote the actual docs, right? So if I go over here, this is where the API functions get implemented. And last time I actually went through and wrote a lot of the documentation. I don't think I did all of it. I did some of it off stream, but I wrote a lot of it here on stream. And since then what I did was I wrote a thing. It's not crazy, but it does generate an HTML file, you can see by printing out. I have some, like, I did some stuff where I'm manually putting in some colors here so that I can define like constants that I can change, like, oh, this is the background color, and then I can reuse that wherever I need to without, like, you know, if I was using CSS, I would put FFE0 everywhere, and then I'd have to go track that down because there's not a good way to alias those to a name properly. So I got some of that basic stuff set up, and it can obviously be, it could be a lot better, but it is what it is for now, and it's working pretty well. So it generates HTML basics here, gets me set up, has a sort of some styling stuff I've already messed with in the style section of the head of the HTML. Then it generates a body right here, and you can see it starts putting out some basic stuff. I don't really like the way I have that style all spread out right there. I'm gonna condense it a little bit. There we go. And let's see. That yeah, that's where the actual text begins right there. Some stuff happens and so on, and then here we start doing fun stuff where I loop across a bunch of functions and stuff like that and spit that all out. So I have some basic stuff down. The way the parsing actually works is it happens up here. Where's the documentation parse? There's the header. This is where I output the customization header, the custom API header. Let me show you what that looks like. So here's the header that gets generated, which basically just generates these 4 paragraphs of the lists of things doing different stuff. So the signature macros, which I can actually eliminate now. The type defs, which I don't think need to be extern C. So I can change that. But what I could do is collapse this down into one, because I'm not using the signatures anywhere except for here now, so it's actually just a waste. I could get rid of the sigs and just put the signature right into the type def, and there you go. And since I'm not using the signatures anywhere else to like stamp out copies of these things, it's kind of a waste to have that now. Then I use these function pointers here. I could format this so that I get all the stars lined up and stuff, which would be kind of nice, make it easier to read. But here I list all of the functions in a struct. That's the app struct that lists all the functions. It also has some built-in stuff there and there that gets just hard-coded in. And then here I have a thing that links all of the things in the implementation file. Right, for instance, here's get theme colors, right? So I define this function get theme colors, and right here I have a macro that sets the get theme colors for the inside the app links from the get theme colors function, which got defined right here, right? So what happens is now I'm not using the spec thing that I used to use. I just parse this file and one other file that contains some more functions, and any function that starts with API export, that is just tells the metacode system that, oh, this function here needs to be spit out into the custom API header and into the docs, right? And then if it tells it that it needs to get spit out into the docs, it then reads for the first comment after that function name, right? So it finds the function name and goes, ah, this is the function we're talking about, finds the comment and goes, ah, here's the doc string, and treats all of that as a doc string. So you can put whatever you want there. Now if I show you what I've got so far, let's see, here it is. So I've got this list of all the functions, which are links now, and I can click on one of these links. So let's check out the exec command function. Ooh, that didn't work. So there's our first bug, but that should have taken me down to here. I wonder if some of these other ones work or not. No, okay, so something is wrong with the linkage between that and the anchor down, that anchor and this div down here. But you can then see that what I've got is a thing that goes, oh, here's the function, here's the full signature of the function, and then I just print out the doc string. Now what I want to do today is actually parse the doc string and pull information out from that. And what I'm planning to do is like error test the parameter documentation. So make sure that the parameters I list in the doc string actually correspond to parameters here, and then do sort of MSDN style breakdown of what each parameter is, and then have a description here. And some of these also have, let me see if I can find one, doc C. So I also have like notations for see also portion that I'd like to add anchors that link to other spots in the documentation. And like access flag, for instance, is an issue because I don't have a thing for listing out the enums. Right now I'm just listing out the functions. So that's other stuff to think about even further down the line, is how I'm going to do stuff other than listing function types or all the functions that are available. I want to list all the enums and structs as well. So what is that going to look like? Is that like I've moved those enums and structs into a file that has API export on them? Probably, something like that. Alright, anyway. In the meantime, why is the... so that it doesn't have the underscore doc. Do you see that? So I said I wanted to link to exec system command underscore doc, but then in the ID I did not put the doc there. So let's get that done first. Metagen. Metagen is the code that actually generates that HTML. Underscore doc. There it is. And down here, this needs an underscore doc appended to it as well. And we don't need to do a full compile all the time here, because it's extra slow on stream. So what I'm going to do is switch over to not doing a full compile and instead just building and running the meta generator, because that can happen very quickly. Although that doesn't count. Actually, what I should do is say, let's not do this ever. Let's go in here, because I still want to count the time with ctime. So really what I want to do is I want to turn off this, I want to turn off that, and I want to turn off that. So I'm just building in and running the meta stuff, but I'm still getting my time correctly. I don't really need these right now. There we go. Cool. Alright. So now, let me see if the links actually work correctly. Cool. So now you can see I've got this list of links, and they jump me to whichever function I'm looking for. So you can look through and go, create buffer, interesting, and then here's the docs for it. So, the first thing I want to do, actually, I think, is before I parse this, I want to be able to parse the parameters, because what I'm doing right now is this parameter section here, or these functions basically get parsed into three things: the return value, or the return type string, which is like this or whatever, the name of the function, which is this, and then the arguments, which is just this whole string here. And what I'd really love to do is break that down into knowing how many parameters there are, and then knowing the like, I want to keep this string here for other reasons, but I want to also say here's how many parameters there are, and here's each of the parameter names, I think. And then I can index in and go, what's this parameter name, what's this parameter name? And then what I would like to be able to do, and I probably want to be able to separate types out as well. So maybe what I'll do is say, here's the first parameter, here's the second parameter, and then I'll be able to even further go in and go, give me the name, give me the name of this and the name of that. So the reason I want to separate those out is I want to do sort of MSDN style docs where for each function I spread these out into separate lines. That way I don't get like nasty wrapping like I have right there. And it also means that it spreads them out in a way that makes it easy to see all of the parameters, how many there should be, and so on. I like the style of the MSDN docs, is what I'm getting at here. So, In order to do that, I want to go up here to the documentation parse first of all, because we need more information. So if I go to the function set, the first thing I need to do is add in, right, I have args. I need a new sort of set of things that's going to represent the further breakdown of these arguments on each one of these things. So it's like an argument breakdown, arg breakdown, and we need an array of those. I'll call this just the arg down, or the breakdown. Is breakdown one word? Let's test. Breakdown. Yes. Okay, cool. Breakdown. Alright, so, argument breakdown. And then I need to define that type, obviously. What am I gonna do? So I basically want to count, and then I want two string arrays, one for param and one for, I'll call it the param string and then the param name. The param string will just be the whole thing. I don't want to parse out the return type separately because that gets complicated. So I'll just have the full parameter string, which is everything that's separated by commas, and then the name is the last identifier in that list. So param string, param name, we'll get a bunch of those in the breakdown, and then what I should do is say, alright, where do I do the malloc for this? Yeah, so the size of this needs to increase by plus size of argument breakdown. And then valid, is that right there? Function set dot argument or breakdown equals, it's an argument breakdown of stored here, right? And then what I'll do, my plan here usually is just don't care at all about memory. I just malloc whenever I want to and never free anything. Could probably switch to a partition-based thing for basically for free if I wanted to get slightly more control and maybe like have static sort of automatically positioned addresses, right? Predictably positioned addresses, which is nice sometimes. But anyway, so I do the loop over tokens. Here, I'm getting each one. For each one of these things, I go, aha, we got this far. We pulled out the doc string. Okay, that's the documentation parse. I actually want to do it up here during the header parse, because the header parse is where we get, yeah, we find out whether or not we've parsed this thing, and then we set valid equals true. And then what I want to try to do is say, okay, what is the number of parameters. And the assumption is it's always at least one in the API right now. Because it always starts with the abstract. And then after the abstract, each comma will count how many additional parameters there are, which makes life easy. If you don't have the guaranteed of at least one, then the difference between 0 and 1 is harder to tell than the difference between 1 and 2, because there's no comma in the difference between 0 and 1. So you have to actually like figure out, is there, you know, just two parentheses with nothing but comments in between them and white space, or do we have more? It's a slightly more complicated thing. Not terribly so. But counting commas is not a hard thing to do. Let's see, arg start token right there is the first open parenthesis, and I think the assumption here is, let's see, token is the close parenthesis. So what we'll do is we'll make a new token here. Arg parse token, or arg token, or something like that, equals arg start token. And then we'll do, look, while arg token is less than the token plus the arg token, if the arg token type is a CPP token comma, then plus the, I'm going to call this the arg count actually, and then when we get to the end, we've successfully counted how many there are, so we can now allocate the strings for the breakdown, right? In other words, the breakdown is right here. Function set dot breakdown sig count equals, and I'll do, yeah, we don't need an if, that'll always be true. So we take that and we go sig count, and then we have the count is the arg count, and let's see what happens after that. We then need to read all the text between here and the first comma, and basically keep on going and saying, alright, read until you see a comma or a closed parenthesis, and there's another, okay, I see. So we first want to do the malloc. I think this will be easier if I just go ahead and do an argument breakdown right here. Alright, so I get my breakdown, and I can operate on it directly now. I don't have to keep going through that rigmarole to get it out of the array. Now the breakdown param string. Well, I need int memory amount size equals, it's going to be the size of a string times 2 times the arg count, right? Let's see. Yeah, so that makes this right here just string pointer malloc. Ah, shit. Malloc. Trying to type one-handed right now, so it's getting a little funky. Memory size. Alright, so that gives me my param string. I need to also store a little bit for the param name, which is just a matter of taking that plus the arg count. Alright, so now we've got space set aside for this particular function's argument breakdown, right? We can store these things. So now what we want to do is start pulling out the correct locations inside the file that actually, store those strings. Alright, so breakdown. Yeah, I want something like arg index equals 0. And then we want like arg token equals arg start token again, except we'll do like +1, while arg token is less than or equal to the end token this time. And what we'll do is at each point, we're basically saying if the arg token type is CPP token comma, or if the arg token type is CPP token close parenthesis, right, then we'll do some logic, otherwise we'll do the other logic. And this is something like param string start equals arg token start. Yeah, so then what we have is after each of one of these things, the string param string is basically what you get when you make a string from the file plus the param string start to the, let's see, what's the size? The size is arg token start minus the param string start, because this is the start of the comma, right? So if I go the start of the comma is right before the comma, and take that and subtract that out. Now there might be white space, so what I'll do now is invoke chop white space, which takes that out. Hey, Canuckles. Yeah, I think I switched to 720p at some point because I was trying to make the stream work better, and it turned out to be better for audio or something like this. I think I did 1080p at one point and changed it. Alright, so I've got my param string, and then I go breakdown param string equals the param string, right? And now the other thing I want is if I take the previous token, or what I want to do is like CPP token param name token. I'm going to start by taking the arg token minus 1, and we want to go for as long as, I guess I can put this at the beginning of that for loop, for as long as the param name token start is greater than the param string start, we can keep doing this, back this up, right, and go, alright, if the param name token type is an identifier. So I'm basically looking backwards for an identifier and saying don't go any farther back than where we started from. If you go that far back, then we have a problem. But look backwards. And you know what? When I do that malloc up here, right there, I should also memset that, shouldn't I? Okay, so if I find an identifier, we're going to assume that that's the param name, so then I just go, great, break down param name equals make a string from file data plus param name token start, param name token size. That's obviously a long line of code, so let's try to make it fit. And there we go. Yeah. There we go. So we make a param name from the token, and then we can break, and we're done. So hopefully it finds the param string, and then it finds the param name by just sort of searching back for an identifier and taking out that one identifier. At which point, we've now found it. We were looking at the comma. Where were we? We were up here, and the arg token was looking at the comma. We then want to increment the arg token. We want to set the param string start equal to that token's start value, and then we want to decrement the token. And we also want to say, look, only do this if the arg token is still less than or equal to the actual token that we're stopping at, because I don't want to have like some kind of like out of memory bounds thing there just in case. Then we go back one, then up here it'll add that back in again, and it'll check and go, we're past the end, right? So then it'll stop, and otherwise, what do? We actually don't do anything in the otherwise case. It's just if we find that, we set the next param string start if we're not done yet, and then we keep going until we find something else. Yeah, that seems like the best way to do it to me. At least in terms of that minimizes how much thinking I have to do to get it correct. I could be more clever and make it faster and maybe cleaner looking, but I would be less likely to be correct when I make changes to it. So I feel like this is the best way. So there we go. I get out all the arg tokens. Let's see if that builds. Param string, you want to know which arg index to use, don't you? And I bet you down here want to know which arg index to use. And then what we'll do is whenever we successfully write out one of those, we'll then increase the arg index, like so. There we go. So that ran correctly, or at least it didn't crash. And now, having all of the arg token, or all the arguments listed out, what I want to do is say, I want to go, where do I drop all these functions? I'm dropping them in somewhere. Here's the HTML stuff. Code style, here it is. So right here, right here it is. Okay, so this is actually, I pulled this out for myself. So here's the return getting dropped out. Here's the name of the function getting dropped out. And then what I want to do is I want to switch to saying, alright, let's manually put in a parenthesis there, and then I want to, how do you in HTML force a new line to occur? There is a way to do it that's not just divs, although maybe divs would be the right thing to do. I don't know. This is where it's a bit odd. I do have to use HTML, or at least I'm putting myself in the position to make HTML So HTML force new line BR. So I just put a BR tag in the middle of something, it'll break. Okay. Alright, so I can just go alright, BR, and then I want a for loop that goes for I equals 0, I less than count, plus plus I, and then each one of those I go string, param string equals breakdown, or like param strings I or something like that. I don't know, breakdown param string I, and I fprintf into the file something like star dot or percent dot star s comma break, and then I go param string size, param string stir. That's good, and then I finally end it with fprintf file close parentheses semicolon maybe, or no semicolon, semicolon, no semicolon. Not sure which is better there. But anyway, now the problem is going to be that none of those things are actually defined. So I should go like arg count right there, int arg count equals, I need to get the breakdown, which is just the function set dot breakdown I, get a pointer to that, take the breakdown count right there, grab each parameter string, blah blah blah. Args is no longer being used since I'm using the breakdown instead. There we go. And there. So now I've spread those all out, which looks pretty cool. The last one shouldn't have a comma. And I would like a way to, I don't know, add spacing there. So I think I want to wrap each of those in like a div or something that spaces them over. So let's see. If I is less than arg count minus 1, do this one, else do this one. And all of these are going to get wrapped in a div. That says, let's see, something about their style. Actually, if I'm going to put them in a div, maybe I don't need a break right there. And let's see, then you can close that div right here. And we'll put in a new line there. That's nice. Alright, now the div needs a style. And that style needs to say margin left, I don't know, 4 millimeters. Something like that. Cool. So now when I copy it, can I easily copy one of these things? Can I easily just go doop, copy, pull it in over here and go, alright, I want to call this function paste. It gets rid of the white space. Awesome. Awesome. I'll just leave you up, don't really care. You. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. Is my computer feeling unwell right now? It's acting unwell. Who's... Is that you? Okay. Yeah, so having that page up was killing my computer, because it doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't like running while OBS is running or something. That was crazy, but now we're back to my computer not using 100% of its CPU, and scrolling looks good again. Alright, cool. So, um, now it's listing these things out sort of the same way it does in a, uh, in the MSDN docs. Now what I want to do is sort of expand this doc string out and parse out like, oh, here's a parameter, check that file name is actually the name of a parameter, and then if so, put in the description, and so on. Do, do, do. Yeah, so I think that is the next thing we want to do, is try to parse these doc strings and make them look fancier. So, usually the first thing I gotta do is figure out what am I parsing these into. And so I'm going to come up here. The function set is where I define for each, function information. So I think that's where the documentation data should go. There we go. And one minute, just curious about something. Okay, cool. So what this needs is basically int param count, string param docs, string return doc, string main doc, and then int c also count, string c also. Okay. And really for my param docs, what I want is for each of those I want to know what's the param name of the doc and then the param doc itself, right? And the cool thing is, down here, I already have a function that gets called that does some of this work. So yeah, what is it bringing in the parse for? Yeah, that's not what I want. So here is I'm going to call this the doc string. And here is the documentation structure called the doc. So I pull out the doc note. The doc note is the thing like that says like doc param blah 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 or doc blah blah blah. Those are the doc notes. So I pull out a doc note, and I say, what's the size of that string? And it says 0, I go, alright, we're done parsing. If it says, what's the type of the doc, it then does a match against this array up here, where you can see I've listed all the different types of doc notes that I have. And it says, what type is it? And if we get a good type, we do something. If we don't get a good type, we want to like printf warning doc unknown or invalid doc note percent dot star s new line, and that comes from doc note size doc note stir. Now switch on the note type and add the info into the parse data. Perfect. Thank you to do. So I want to switch on the doc note type. And basically there's the four types are case 0, doc param, and what I should really do here is I want an enum of doc note type, boop, which has doc param, doc return, doc, and doc c. So now I can case doc param, doc return, doc, and doc c. So now we're switching out which type we get, and then what I want to do is throw the information in there. So the easy two are these ones because they don't involve variable number of strings that I have to deal with. So I'll do these first. So doc return, I just say let's see, strings have doc parse identifier, doc note. Well, if I got a good one, first thing I should do is like string get the doc, I don't know what you want to call it, doc note string or something like this. And what that'll do is just be like doc parse note string. Here's the I got the doc note, so I want to get the doc string in there and the position basically. And I think I need to run to the bathroom before I continue. So let's see. Oh, I have I'm gonna do this. I'll be right back. Fukon, you still there? You still with us? I just got back. I'm gonna continue now. Alright, so I need to write this doc. Oh, I don't have doc parse identifier either. Okay, well I need to do both of these. String doc parse note string. Doc string. I'll call this source int star post. The idea of these functions is they pull out a part of the source string that I care about, and they skip a portion of the source string, which is potentially longer or shorter, or the same amount as the thing I pulled out. But I skip whatever I don't want to read anymore, so that I can continue doing interesting stuff. And then they chop off the white space. And that's that. And then they return the result, right? So they return a string to you, which is some substring of this, and they move your counter, your position, your reading position forward. So they're just little helpers there. I'll write those later. So I pull out the doc note string, and if I'm a return or just a doc note, then what I want to do is just set those directly, because those are easy. So doc return doc equals doc note string. End of discussion. Doc equals doc note string. End of discussion. With these ones, what I need to do something more like I guess since I'm not even going to be able to count these very easily unless I do two passes here. I could do two passes, which is what I've been doing on everything else in this system. So keep parsing equals true again. And I'm going to ignore errors on the first time through. I'm going to go until I find that, and then for each of these, I'm going to increase a counter. Don't care about that very much, but I do need to at least advance the position that far. Param count plus plus and C count plus plus. Param count, C count. And then what I can do is I go look, my doc param, what I'll do is if param count plus C count is greater than 0, doc param string, I think, param string, okay, param name and param doc. So param name, well, int memory size equals, I need the size of a string times 2 times param count plus the size of a string times the C count. So then the doc param docs param name equals string malloc memory size. By the way, this is all just kind of silly. We can do it that way. Okay. And then the doc param docs equals take that plus the param count, and then doc C C also equals the doc param docs plus param count, Alright, so that gives me all of those, and then what I can do is here when I'm parsing through I can just assume that I haven't overstepped my count, because otherwise the parses happen differently on the first pass and the second pass, which is not good news. Okay, so it'll be like assert that this param index is still less than the param count, and down here assert that the C index is less than the C count, and then at each point doc param, well this one's actually a little more complicated. I can do the doc C pretty easily. Doc C also C index plus plus equals the whole doc note string, and then right here, and this is why I should put brackets in every time, because I always end up wanting to do brackets on these things anyway. Almost never worth it to skip the brackets. It's never worth it to skip the brackets. That's my little speed coding tip of the day. See, I saw down there I skipped the brackets, and someday I'm gonna pay for it by having to put in the brackets. So I want doc note string. Right, I want to parse out. Basically, what I need to do is grab everything. So I'm going to do something like param name equals. We're going to need a position. Int position equals int param position equals 0. Doc parse to comma. And I take the doc note string param pose, and then param doc doc parse. I'll call this parse parameter. Parse parameter doc note string param post, and then doc param name param index equals param name. Replace param name with param docs plus plus the param index. Then I just gotta write this function here. Cool. Actually, those don't even want to be the same. Doc parse parameter doc parse last parameter. Okay, so now I need to just write these functions here, and then everything will magically not work, because that's how programming is. So to parse an identifier, what I want to do, and I'm going to start by going, look, int p equals pos. At the end, I'm going to do pos equals p, and then I don't have to write stars everywhere. Int start equals p, while p is less than source size, or what I should say is while p is less than source size plus plus p. See, that's the reason I always use the for loop, is because it reminds me to do the increment, where if I write the while, I almost always forget the increment for some reason. Okay, so for that stuff there, if basically I want to go to the first, yeah, so basically if source dot stir p equals open paren break, and then the result is source dot string equals make string source dot string plus start up until p minus start, and then the first thing that I'll parse after that will be the open parenthesis. Okay. Main doc. Perform doc parse. Wants the lexeme and the, let's see, function set documentation match 926. You're still not happy with that, huh? Function set doc. Just doc that time. Gotcha. Okay, cool. Doc parse blah 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 blah. Very good. Now what I want to say is, look, if I get to the end, if p does not equal source.size, then do this. I don't want you to return that we found something when we actually got to the end and never found what we were looking for. So there we parse out the identifier for the, that should really not be called, that should be called doc parse note. Identifier, try note. So I pull out the doc note, and then blah blah, nope, blah blah blah. I pull out the doc note, I pull out the parse note string. So then I need to pull out the note string. So the first thing I do is I assert that source stir star post equals open paren. Otherwise we mess something else up. Then what I do is I go, okay, int p equals post plus 1, p less than, and that should be int start equals p less than source size plus plus p. If source dot string p equals close parenthesis, then what I want to do is break, and look, if p does not equal source size, then result equals make a string source string plus start p minus start plus plus p this time because I want to skip the close parenthesis, star pose equals p. And by the way, I said I would do this and I totally skipped it. I want to chop white space off of these. Cool. Yeah, I could use a reference, but the references just confuse me. Like, I know how they're supposed to work, but I don't want to have things in my program that I need to think about. So when I read the code, then I have to stop and think, like, oh, I need to think about another detail. The fewer things in my language, the better. The, the fewer things in my language, the better for the most part, because there's just less things for my brain to tackle in addition to the code that I'm trying to make it produce. You know what I mean? Anyway, doc parse parameter. Right, so that means read up until a comma. So same idea again. Blah blah, all that stuff. And this is a pretty throwaway code. If this wasn't such throwaway code, I would probably come up with something more, more solid than writing out and reading it back in. I'd have a trick that I'd pull. I've even considered, like, I don't know. It's basically the same idea of, like, I wish I could just do using star pose and then just use pose. That would be better for me, but. Or like using P as star pose. That'd be awesome, right? That would be less confusing to me because the reference is like got more complicated semantics. I'd like it to be almost directly a text replacement. Anyway, P equals star pose plus 1, start equals P, go until I find a comma. If I didn't get to the end, make my result string, chop out the white space, skip the comma, and return out the correct position, return out the new string. Awesome. One last time. I want to go to the last parameter. That means I want to go until I find a close parenthesis. I want to not chop off the last, skip that close parenthesis. I want to chop the white space off of that. Yes, once I get it out, if and only if I got to the end, or if and only if I didn't get to the end of the string, but actually found the close parenthesis, right? That all seems good. Doc note, doc parse identifier. That should be doc parse note, I believe. Yeah. Okay, so that says it worked, or at least it didn't crash, right? To actually see it, I want to double check with the debugger that we got something that looks right. So where does that happen? This is the doc generation stuff here, so if I stop it here, it'll have the results of that parse. Whoops, no. I want to just see function set, please. Alright, so here are my docs. Ooh. What's that all about? Alright, so something's not working. Obviously, I'm not setting my doc pointer, first of all. So let me go down to the malloc right here. Okay, so it does get that far. We've got a proper doc string right here in this lexeme, right? And we've reduced out the open and close of the comment. Now what we do is we go, there's your doc string, perform doc parse. Comes in here and it says get that right there. Oh, does it keep parsing forever? No, 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 it doesn't. It quits eventually. Okay, so it comes in here, and it goes, alright, look for an open parenthesis, and it'll eventually find one, hopefully. Yeah, so then it returns that, it chops the white space. Oh, is that only chopping off the back end? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, that's not chopping white space off the front and I thought chop white space did both sides. Shoot. Chop white space. Yeah, what's the big deal here? So you're chopping white space off the end. Yeah, you just literally don't do it off the front. That's fine, I guess. I equals 4, I equals 0. I is less than string size, and char is white space, string I, plus plus I. So now we start at the beginning. Whoops, that's all I wanted to do there. We start at the beginning, we go into, while we're still seeing white space and not at the end of the string, we move forward, and we go, alright, now the result. Why do I have a result string? That's odd. That should just be the same string so I can substring it twice. Substring string I. Daru20 asks if I put the return type above because of Casey Muratori. I originally started doing that because of him. It's true. Oh yeah, I just like the style. But I actually have a legitimate reason why I can't switch away from it now. And I don't know if this has nothing to do with why he does it. His reason was more aesthetic than this. Mine is real, like some of my stuff would stop working, and in particular, if I go to this, right? So this is the code here that all of this documentation that I'm generating comes from. And it's also the code where like a header gets generated from this code. So parsing this code is a part of the system. And right now my parser is not super smart. So helping it figure out like, oh, is this star part of the type or something, or is not, like that kind of level of parsing, I don't want to have to make my parser super smart. It can find tokens, so it knows this is a token, it knows this is a token. But if I had that, it would be like, oh, that's a token, but it would be very confused about which things here are return type related and which things aren't. So what I do now is everything that goes, the function name goes right here, so that it's easy to find that, and then I say anything like the parser for this knows what API export means specifically. But if I put anything else on this line, like if I were to say inline, it would get confused and think that's a part of the return type. So I'm not putting that there. Anything that I want to put there has to go into sort of these approved these sort of approved little tags for my own parser, so that it's very trivial for me to pull out that return type. Once I have a smarter parser, I won't rely on that so much. But if I did this right now, I'm pretty sure it would get confused because it'll think that literally this whole string here is the return type, because I don't really have it doing anything too clever to pull that out. So, yeah, I'm currently actually in certain places doing it for a specific reason. I have a few other things, like this naming scheme for this function here is something I've learned I kind of have to do to make this system work, and it suggests that what I actually want to do is switch to Casey's naming scheme potentially, where things get named like that, although it's hard to say for sure. But yeah, I'm curious. I know that his reason for the return type thing is just like when he was doing templates, that line got too long. I wonder if I've wondered recently if his naming scheme is chosen for the auto generation too, because the thing about the naming scheme I'm using here is to name my function this way. What this allows me to do is if I want an all caps version, I can make that. If I want a lowercase version, I can make that. If I want camel case without underscores, I can make that. If I want lowercase with underscores, I can make that, or without it, or blah blah blah. This particular format where you separate each word with an underscore and you say where capital letters should go and where lowercase letters should go, lets you basically generate all other styles from that style, right? So let me find one where if it's got a GUI in it, I guess I don't have the word GUI. Oh, CD, right? I have that around here somewhere, don't I? Yeah, this one right here. This is actually defined in a separate file, but the point is this right here, this capital C, capital D, in that file it's printed as capital C, capital D, so that the system knows if we're doing like camel case without underscores, these both need to be capital. They're not. It's not like upper C, lower D or something like that. And this naming scheme is also sort of a part of my forced into it by the code generation. If I want to make it as powerful as possible, I have to use this naming scheme and this layout and stuff. Of course, it would still work without that. It's just that makes life easier to do those kinds of things. So why not? Okay, so chomp white space. Oh, I have a skip white space. Okay, I see. So I have two separate functions. Skip chop white space. Stir equals skip white space stir. And I can now switch back to having like a result string that is separate if I wanted. String equals chop white space stir, return stir. Okay, so let's see what that does. Comes in here. We parsed a note string just now. What did we get as our doc notes type, by the way? 0, so that increases the param count and so on. Doc note. Doc. Okay, that looks like it's maybe working this time. Param count plus C count was 0 and 1. We're only parsing one thing right now, and that's correct. The first function does not have a C, and it only has one parameter. So then it comes in here and it allocates space for the name, the doc, and the C also strings. And then what was that? Oh, position needs to get set back. I see. So when I set keep parsing to 0, I should also set position to 0. Or I mean, when I set keep parsing to true, I should set position to 0. Alright. So it's going to go in there and perform the doc parse, which means it reads to there, allocates some space. Oh, I skipped it, my bad. Okay, allocate some space. How many did it get? 7 and 0, interesting. And then it should pull that out 7 times. So let's see, at the very end of this, can I see like, well, I'll just walk it through. So 1. And by the way, what is my param name coming out as? Uffer, huh? Param docs. Param name. So those aren't quite coming out right. Let me put down a breakpoint right there. We come in here, what's my doc note string look like? Path. Parse parameter. Oh, I have a +1 there from my copy paste job, but that +1 is wrong. Okay, so 548. Alright, so we grab that. This is not a particularly great one, but let's see. Doc note string command ID. So we get command ID, which has 10 letters. Is that true? There's 5. There's 5. Okay, that's true. And then the param docs comes out as empty. Alright, so my next time through, I'll take a look at that function there, which is getting some kind of problem. So the source string starts at 99, or ends at 99, so I'm curious which one that is. Source stir 99 is the close parenthesis. Oh, I see. The close parenthesis isn't included. 573. So we actually want it to go to the end of the string in this case. And if it doesn't get to the end of the string, then that's an error. Alright, let me see. I think that this is going to work. So I want a single breakpoint. Well, I want a single breakpoint down here when we're about to start that stuff. Function set. Okay, so the doc is now kind of working. My param count and C also count never got set. Okay. There it is. We're going to switch this to memory size so that it matches everyone else. Alright. So memory size, you are not including the correct size of documentation that you should be. Okay. And then, so we get the docs structs, and those will now be cleared to 0, and then during the perform doc parse, blah blah blah, we're coming through right here. I want to set the docs param count to param count, and the doc C also count to C count. So we get down to here, we look at the first one, he's got 1, and he's like, aha, command ID, an integer, blah blah blah. This looks pretty good. So now, when we go to drop the doc string, we can do something smarter. Yeah, this spot right here. So this is where we're about to, we're going through, and right here the doc string comes down, so that's the part we're going to replace now. Right, so let's see, where does ret get used, by the way? I'm going to make these things more local. Okay, so the name gets used everywhere. Ret shows up right here. Arguments show up there, and then the doc string will show up down here, but now we're going to use the actual documentation. So this is going to be doc function set doc I. I'm going to take that doc there, and then I don't like the way that's laid out. Where does that closed div get opened? Okay, I see. Alright, so now here begins, I don't want you in there because it's confusing me. Put you down here. Okay, so right here we get the actual documentation to come out. And so now what I want to do is say, look, this is basically going to happen in stages. So, for int I equals 0, I is less than count plus plus I, where count is going to be like the int param doc count equals doc param count right, and then for each of those I pull out a string param name equals doc param name I, and param docs right? And so with each of those I can go, alright, fprintf, and I want to know, like, right here to do, check that param name is actually a parameter to this function, right? Alright, so fprintf, from the file, I want to, or into the file, I want to print a div section like so. I'm gonna have a bold section, and this is where I have to pull up good old this right here, HTML bold. Fucon, I'm not sure exactly what you mean. I mean, yeah, what it basically does right now is it's gonna produce sort of warnings whenever there's, like, parameters that are incorrect. So, like, if I have a documentation that's written that says, oh, this function has this parameter, but then I've changed that function, but I didn't update the documentation string for the function, it'll go, hey, this parameter doesn't exist anymore. And like similarly for return, I'm going to add a thing that checks that the return type that I said is for this function is correct. And that's just a sanity check thing that's like, hey, if you haven't fixed this, then you probably haven't reread the documentation. The other thing I've done to make my life as easy as possible, though, is the docs are literally stored right here next to the code. So whenever I go to adjust the code, I just need to come back up here and reread the docs. And now I've even got it down to where the declaration for the function is right here, so I can check and go, alright, here's the name of the parameters, I can see those, I can make sure that these match those, and that my descriptions make sense, and then check the code to make sure my description makes sense. So it's all, everything about this function is literally right here now. It's not, there's literally no other spot where the description of this function shows up. So I have it all in one spot to make my life as easy as possible to keep these things correct in the future. So now what we're really doing is trying to extract this information and display it in a way that's useful, is the main concern at the moment. I do have a thing that says if there's a completely missing documentation, it'll warn me as well. So like if I write a function and don't put the doc in, but that's like, now that I have the system set up, the only way that would happen is if I write a function and don't write the doc for it. But basically my new rule is anything that's in the API, writing the docs is just a part of writing the code. You never edit the code without making sure the docs are still correct and so on. Yeah. It does throw out 2 warnings, but that's because I've intentionally not documented 2 sort of internal-ish API functions. They're internal because I'm going to remove them as soon as possible, but I needed to expose them to get other stuff working right now. So they have like an underscore in their name and stuff to also indicate that they're not to be used, but I'll show you, it does actually emit a warning for the fact that there's no doc string there. Okay, so I said I want bold, right? So how do I do bold? Is that just B? Looks like it's just B. Bold might be what I want. If not, I can always just make a span section and set a style in it too. But right here, what I think I want to do is put the name of the parameter, and then actually, yeah, I could add a thing that's like no doc and put a string in there so it just doesn't generate a doc and it like hides it from the documentation, which would be better than what I'm doing. But and it wouldn't shoot warnings out then. And by shoot I mean shit. I just said it wrong. Okay, so I'm changing my mind. I don't want to do bold. I want to do div, and I want to do style. Let's see, we'll do a new line there. So open a div for the whole thing. New line there, and a new line there. I want to do style equals, and then I want to set the font weight. So font weight, and I'm going to set that to like 600, right? Something like that in that div. So that will be the name of the parameter. Param name dot size, param name dot stir, and then this one here, I'll put it in a separate div for now. Will be the actual documentation string, so that's param docs dot size, param docs dot stir, right? And then I'm going to take this and just get rid of it because it's irrelevant now. 1194. True. I'll get that back in there. 1224 doc. I see. Yes. So this needs to be more like wait a minute. No, I don't see. Warning treated as error. I definition from the for loop is ignored. The definition from the enclosed loop is used. 1224. What are you talking about? Oh, I see what you're worried about. Well, let me just change these I's into J's real quick. Shut up, shut up. Give me 4coder back. Shut up. There we go. I into J. No, not that I. You stupid, stupid, stupid. Need the ability to do token-based replacement. Okay. If J is less than to arg count, J, there we go. J, 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 J. And I need to close this because it for some reason kills my computer. File name len, flags. That looks pretty right. And I'll show you real quick my actually, yeah, the warnings aren't emitted all of a sudden. What's going on there? Oh, that's because I deleted that thing just now, literally. So what I would do is something like if function set dot doc string I dot size equals 0, f printf into the file no documentation generated for this function. Assume it is non-public. New line. Printf warning, no documentation string for %.s, new line. With that being the let's see, name dot size, name dot stir. There we go. So there's the documentation warnings back. They were there and I deleted them a moment ago. Fucon, when you have a string that you want to printf, but it's not null terminated, but you know the size of the string, you do %.s, and the reason you can do that is %.number_s is a way to say the string has like 10 characters or whatever, right? Whatever number you put there instead of the star tells it how many characters you want. Well, what if the number is not something you know at compile time, it's stored in another variable? Well, you put a star there and then you put the number before the string pointer and it uses that as the size of the string. Since most of my strings are not null terminated strings, they're just length bounded strings, I use .s a lot. It makes life a lot easier to know about it. Alright. Now, to deal with this situation, we're spitting this out. I want to format that a little better, but you're worried about the color yellow that I'm using here, which is perfectly fine. I'm not a graphic designer. So what do you think? Should it just be white? Should it be closer to white? Or actually white? That is just the background color. I can make it closer to white. Boop. Now it's very close to white. It's just barely yellow. I can also make it farther from white. Boop. Now it's more yellow. I make it very far from white. Now it's actually pure yellow, which is not a good idea. In case you want the other numbers, you can take a look right here. I've got all the colors I'm using defined right here, except for black, obviously. But my pop 1 color is just 70 on the let's try this. Alright, you say fafa for the, or fafa for the background color. You say text should be ododa or ododo, ododode. Trying to figure out how to pronounce that. Alright. Fa fa fa. Ododo. Ododode. 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 There you go. Ododode. It's an ododode. So you want me to come in here and say that the default color is text color. Hey, that looks pretty nice. And what we could also do is say make this dark green a little more pleasant given those choices. I'd say maybe by just increasing the green a little bit brighter. Maybe throwing in a hint of the other colors. Underlining the pop 1, what are you talking about? So that's too much. How does that look? I think this is pretty good. Awesome. Okay, so let's get back to how I want to format these parameter things here. So, let me go look around and get some inspiration from some other documentations that I've liked. So here what they do is they've got it in italics and then they indent, they have a little margin, I guess, there on the description. That's an option. There's also tables. I could do a table with each parameter and then the description of each parameter. Of course, I wouldn't go with the Windows style where your parameters with or your tables width are chosen such that it maximizes fuckery. I would, of course, not go with that decision. We can also look at the Lua manual, which is always one of my favorite documentations that I've pulled up even recently. I don't like all this stuff they do for the non-C++ stuff because it's just dynamic parameter choices is just not what I'm dealing with anyway. Let's see, this is all just where do I get the, this is 2, 3, describing the language. Okay, this is the C API. This is what I want. Yeah, here they're listing parameters out, which is cool. And then they don't really have a parameter description in there. They do have that sort of signature listed, which is nice. Now, one thing I could do, a new feature would be to say, look, all of these always have an app parameter, and I don't list that in any of the doc strings because it would just be repetitive. But what I could do is say, look, the default description for a parameter with this name is blah. And then what will happen is, as I'm looping over parameters, it will go, alright, does this parameter have a description? Use it. Does this parameter have a description? Use it. And if it goes, this parameter have a description? No. Does it have a default description? Use that. That might be a nice feature, but then all that's going to do is put the app description on all of these, which is not necessarily what needs to happen. But this is fine. So let's do a little bit of formatting work, I guess. So so for one thing, I've got this like all the way over to the left, and maybe I want to try to make these more. I'm not sure. Hey Ginger Bill, yeah, I'm working on the doc system right now. This is what it looks like so far. I've actually got more documentation to put on the screen. It's just so far I'm only working on formatting the parameter docs. I'm thinking what I'll do is have the parameter name in bold. Maybe I want a thing that says here are parameters like they have right here. Right? I say here's parameters. Alright, Fucon, that sounds like a good plan to me. So let's go with that. I set the width and stuff down here in the outer div. So left width. I have it at 188 millimeters. You're saying 900 pixels, which is fine. And then center it. Shit, this is the stuff that I hate HTML for. Okay, so let's take a look. HTML center div. Horizontally center a div in a div. Inner width 50%, margin 0 auto. I don't want width 50%. Okay, cool. So I can just do margin auto 0, or 0 auto, it sounds like. So we don't want this so much, nor this, but we want this. Alright, so there we go. Now we're centering that properly. And now what it kind of seems like is I want to make I'm debating just throwing the parameters into a table. That seems like it's going to be nasty when the parameters descriptions get long enough. So maybe I want to spread out the descriptions a little bit vertically so that one doesn't end and then another one starts right on top of it. And I should switch these to being like proper English with starting with capital letters. I would like that more. But okay, so let's see, where do I do the weight? I have a font weight in here somewhere. There it is. Okay, so font weight, and then this div here is going to have a style of margin left, something like 20 millimeters, maybe. That's too much. 10. There we go. And then I want to space them out vertically, which means after each of those divs, I want a margin below the descriptions div as well. Something like 10 millimeters. That's too far. Maybe 3 millimeters. That's too close. Maybe 6 millimeters. Alright, that looks pretty good, I think. I'm debating just putting them on the same line, so it's like view space. Like, let's see, this one here doesn't do that. They've got an indent and then they write stuff. But my descriptions aren't that long right now. What do you guys think? Any thoughts on how I should format these parameter descriptions? If not, I'm going to just throw the word parameters up here on the top and move on. Alright, so not on the same line then. Ginger Bill, you'd be glad to know that I have a plan for completely opening up the way the custom, like the cursor and highlighting system works to the customization side, and then I'm going to implement a multi-cursor type thing. Won't be for a little while. It's going to take time to get there, but basically I'm going to make it so that the idea of a cursor is not built in. You will manage your own cursors and do whatever you want with them. So it will not from there be very hard to maintain a multi-cursor system, I don't think. Aligning, yeah, insofar as you mean like taking these types here and then like adding space between them and the name so that they line up with all the names on one side. Because I know obviously they do that here. They've got, if you ignore this, you've got the types here and then the names here, which is kind of nice. Yeah, I'll have to think about that. I don't currently have types separated. I've got this string as a whole and that string there. I guess what I could do is once I've got that string, just say the rest of this, you know, take the rest of the string and that's your type, and then I could separate them out. But other than up here, is there anything down here that could look better? This is the part I'm actually trying to change right now, because it won't involve me. Just involves me doing HTML work, not in complicating the parser any farther. It's not really always two words. So, and like the stars don't quite work and stuff like that. At least I don't think they would. Alright, so I'm going to assume that we're good with this. I'm going to throw the word parameter in there. And let's see, blah blah blah. So right here, fprintf into the file, a quick sort of div and div parameters. I'll probably make that like italic or something. Maybe I would like this better if instead of this I did this. I think I like that better. Why am I typing in the chat? That doesn't make sense. Oh well. I'm just people in the chat get my nice little response there, and everyone else will find it mysterious because it's totally off topic, but it's fine. So what do you guys think? Does this look alright? Should I move parameters over too, or does this look dumb? I'm not sure. I'm not really one who knows how things should look. But I kind of like these aligning flat, actually. I might move them to the left a little bit. How does that look? Insofar as, do you mean you don't like the indent right here, or you don't like the indent down here? So we can try to mess with both of those. There's no indent at all, which is probably fine. I think this needs a margin on the bottom. Maybe smaller. And maybe one on the top too. One thing I would kind of like to do is put this in a box up here. Where is this? This div here. Blah blah blah. Not that div. This div here. Background. Code background. Back color. Define code background. That should just be code back. As like, so here's the normal back color. Maybe take that and go a little darker with it, right? Or a little more yellow. Or, I don't know, maybe brighter. Code background. Whoops. Shit, what is going on here? Stop that, stop that. Code background. I don't see it. Doesn't mean it's not there. Alright, there it is. Now, what should it be? Fa fa fa. Blah blah blah. Da da da. Diff diff diff. I don't know, that looks kinda cool, I think. Alright, so we're going to indent the description a little bit, and not the parameter name. That is the consensus of everyone's favorite version. I like that. How's this looking? Awesome. Yes, I like the look of this. This looks pretty cool, I think. We need some padding, I'm told, on the div for the on this one. Let's try this. Padding 0.25 EM. Uh-oh. Things just got all CSS on me. What happened? Oh, I forgot a semicolon. Cool. Alright, awesome. Let's drop in the return now. So we have one for parameters. We don't really need to keep this around. Parameters. Alright. Here's one for return. And that will just be a matter of printfing from the file. We'll do, I don't know, let's just do a single div for now, and we'll see if we need to snazz it up at all as we go. And that just needs to have the whole description right there. So that is, let's see, string ret doc equals doc return doc ret doc dot size ret doc dot stir Badoop. Let's see, parameters, return value. You can't really tell that there's a box here and then an equivalent box there. What I should do is say if I have a ret doc at all, then do this. Similarly, if let's get you up here and you right there, and if the doc param count is greater than 0, we'll do all this. Yeah, it seems like these don't stand out enough, which just means maybe they need to be, I don't know, this is already that big, which means if that's bigger, it's a little awkward. But I agree they don't stand out enough, so maybe they want to be colored or underlined, or they could be bold italic as well. Let's see, which would suggest that I want to do something like, well, what I should be doing, if I was clever, is something like doc section head or doc section open, blah blah blah, doc section, or this is more like doc doc head open, doc head close, blah blah, and then doc head open is just a matter of all this stuff. Doc head close is just a matter of all this stuff. Doc head open, doc head close, doc head open, whoops, whoops, doc head open, doc head close, and then right here we're saying maybe throw in a bold. Okay, so maybe instead of bold, try green. I like that sound. I like that sound. Not sure what that means exactly, but pop color 1. That's not actually any good. Well, let's try this. Put that in there and do the bold. That kind of works. It's still just the exact same size as this, which means it looks like it's at the same level. I could make that a little bigger. I think I'll make this a little bigger. So that's a header, like an H4, I believe, right? Let me track down my font size thing. Did I not set the font size anywhere? No, I guess not. So inspect this element real quick. What do we have here? This H4. Yes. Meaning we have a font size of what? Font weight bold. Well, let me find an H3 somewhere. Here's an H1 and H2. Here's an H3. H3 has a line height of 1.2, font size of 1.17. So I want something smaller than that, but bigger than 1. Font size 1.17 divided by 2 is 0508 EM. What do we think? You want me to increase the weight on H4 as well? Is that what you're saying? We can do that. Font weight Let's try 700. Wait, what was the font weight? Was it 700? What's it talking about? What are we talking about? I could increase all of these to have a font weight that heavy, but I don't really like it. I could give that more font weight, but that would let me make this a little bigger. I'm going to try to make it a little bigger. Well, let's just go for this. Dupe. Yeah, okay, that's pretty good. Alright, so now about this return thing. Should I indent this text the way I did for all of these so that it lines up right there? I'm going to try that. Margin left. Yeah, I think that that's pretty much correct. Alright, now let's put in the main description. So we so far have blah and blah, fprintf, close div, not time for you yet. So we're going to go string main doc equals doc main doc. If main doc.size does not equal 0, do this. Doc head open, description. This description, I don't like it because I was describing all these flags, but I actually want to describe flags in a separate section, which is fine. Horizontal rule after each function, not a bad idea. That's HR, right? HTML HR. Cool. Alright, and I need to close stuff because my computer appears to be running super choppy again. Okay, I think that it's, yep, back to normal. Alright, so we got one last thing to do. I don't think there's... Oh, shit. So, to do item, if I see an open parenthesis, the matching closed parenthesis should not be counted as the end of the note string, right? Alright. So, I'll put that off for now and go up here to documentation parse and just leave a note to do and open do parent matching in the doc note string. Alright. Finally, I'll do something like, no, this is not right. That's not correct. Where is this? Down, 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 down. Down, 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 down. Okay, that's more like it. This right here. Now you pop up here, you're in the wrong spot. You, doc C count. C also count. For int j, or, well, first of all, if doc C count is greater than 0, I'm gonna print C also, and then I'm going to print j equals 0, j is less than doc C count. Grab the doc C count. So I want like the C also, which comes from the doc C also subscript j, and then I'll do printf the file, or into the file I should say. I'm an idiot. How do I go this far without noticing that? Okay, so this is like doc item open, doc item close, doc item open looks like this. Oh, they aren't all exactly the same, but this is fine. Doc item open, doc item close, doc item close, doc item open, doc item close, doc item open, doc item close. There we go. And now I don't want to put in the doc stuff. I want to put in C also dot size, C also dot string, but I want to make this an anchor with an href. And the href should be also filled by that C also with the underscore doc on it. So I actually want 2 lines of that, basically. So now, like this one here is not in here yet. I don't have buffer create flag, because that's a flag type. So I don't have these flags in the doc generator system yet. They're not annotated. But some of these, like let me find one that has a function. See, I don't really want those to have the margin of 6, so that's fine. We can fix that. You. You are unique to this particular situation right here. There we go. Now if I click on that, shoot, did that wrong. It should be with a pound sign right there. Get buffer first. There we go. So now that links me to the other function, which is cool. They're actually right above and below each other, so it's not that impressive. But once I have these other things annotated in here, that'll be a nice way to jump to the flags that you're trying to find information about, like, oh, what is this? And then it'll go, that doesn't exist yet, so we're here at the top. But very cool. So that's it. That's the entire documentation system for now. How does this looking to everybody? Is this looking like a good full system? Something you could manage to read and get information out of? Yes, part of this documentation file will eventually include use samples as well. Right now I'm just doing the thing that lists the functions. We need to do flags and enums and structs, and then I can think about and hooks actually, although I'm trying to eliminate those. But yeah, like callbacks are also not listed here. These are just the things you can call. I also want to fill out this description, put in a table of contents, and so on and so on. But I think that's it for today. Thank you everyone who joined me. This is starting to definitely shape up into something that will be usable. So I'm excited about that. I'll hang out for a bit to see if there's any questions or comments or anything like that about what I'm doing with 4coder near term. Fucon, if I keep streaming all day, I'll never see you stream, which, you know, is not the situation I want to find myself in. So, what can I do? I have to take a break now. might. Now I need to like proofread all this shit too. Look at this. The output buffer might have a capacity of at least end minus start. That's not at all what that's supposed to say. Buffer read range, that's in implementation. Maybe I'll proofread this real quick and see if you guys can give me any pointers on things that the docs are missing. Must have a capacity of at least end minus start. Yeah, it's missing the closing parent plus everything else written here because it thinks that this is the whole string when it sees that closed parent. It really wouldn't be too hard to fix that, so let's do that while you're egging me on. Looking for a closed parent. Oh wait, what was that? Is that a part of the if zeroed section? Yeah, let's get rid of the if zero section. Oh, speaking of which, I wonder if the clock now contains HTML in the output. Look at that. HTML, 940 lines. I've written 940 lines of HTML in just 2 days of work, Friday and Monday. Alright, so, perform doc parse, parse last parameter, parse parameter, parse note string. Yeah, so what I want here is I want to have int parent or nest level equals 0. And what'll happen is we'll just do the standard thing. If nest level equals 0, then we perform this logic. Or it's more like, if I see a closed parenthesis and nest level equals 0, we perform this logic. Else we decrement the nest level. Else, if the source strp equals the open parenthesis, then we increment the nest level. That didn't work. Oh, that's got to be else if we see the open parenthesis. There we go. Another thing that's not happening is my documentation, the actual doc string, if I go to like read range, it contains like new lines, but new lines get ignored in HTML. So what I really want to do is after but the problem is if I see 2 new lines in a row, basically that's the rule. 2 new lines in a row is supposed to signify a break in the paragraph. So that's a feature that I want to add because I think that would break up a lot of these long paragraph ones that are like, well, this one I guess it wouldn't break up at all. So I didn't break it up. But this would be broken down into a bunch of smaller paragraphs then. So yeah, it looks like my general rule is 2 new lines means a new paragraph. 1 new line is just me sort of soft flowing my text in the code, which is lame. Alright. Another thing that I'm still missing right now is my function declaration has to all fit on 1 line the way this works right now because I still treat it as something that I can drop into a macro as is, and if I put it in 2 lines, it'll drop it in with the new line, and then the new line will mess up the macro. So I would need to like parse out like if I was going to allow for new lines, I would need to like add new lines here and then make sure I can parse those out and turn them into spaces or something in the macros or something like this. Yeah, I want to take a break though, so I'm gonna wrap this stream up. Thank you everybody for coming out and helping me out with this graphic design stuff. starting to look pretty cool. I'll see you guys later. Bye bye.